All right, I want to pick up where I left off before. I did a demo that showed you how to set up artboards so that you could do this photography cropping in a grid format so that you could kind of see how these things would interrelate to each other in Photoshop. And so now I want to show you how you can export these pictures out in the format that they're in terms of being square and cropped and color corrected and all of that stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest are two different options. One is the first one is going to be based on if you want to do it for print. And the second one that I'll show you is going to be if you want to do it for any kind of screen display like phone, web, mobile device, whatever. Okay, so the first one, if you, first of all, I want to show you something. If you go up to File and you go to Export, there are a lot of exporting options. And first one that I want to show you is you've got Artboards to Files, and I just want to show you the settings, and then I'm going to have to come back and do a couple of things. But all right, so first of all, it lets you find your destination, so of course you're going to browse, and we're going to fix that in just a minute. And then it's saying file name prefix, so it's going to put this before every picture that it auto generates, because this is going to be an automated feature. You used to have to do all of this stuff manually in Photoshop. Well, not manually. You used to have to manually create a batch in what's referred to actions if you wanted to just export a whole bunch of stuff at once. Now at least just the plain old exporting part is kind of cool and automated in this way now in Photoshop, so you don't have to create an action that you run as a batch. So anyway, it's going to prefix the name, the file name with this, unless you can change that if you want. So you could just call it point if you didn't want to call it point photo investigation, whatever. And then the other thing too that you're going to notice, there's a thing right here where it says include overlapping areas or art content only, and where it says export selected artboards. Right, here's the problem, is that I don't have any artboards selected, so it's not going to work right now. But you do want to be able to check that off where it says export selected artboards so that it'll do more than just one. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel real quick. What you need to do to select your artboard is this. You can't just click here on the artboard. It looks like it's highlighted and it's selected, right? But in reality, it's not. What you need to do is you need to click on the name of the artboard like I showed you before. And now holding down your shift key, you're going to click on the name of the other artboards as well. Okay? So let's just do that. So it can be a little bit tricky if you're not careful. And where you click. All right, so but now they're all selected. And you notice too, here's the other way that you can tell in the layers panel, it actually has the entire artboard selected, whereas here I'm going to click off of here. Before, when I just clicked in the window, see how it's got the actual picture selected? It doesn't have the entire artboard selected. So another way you could do it too is you could, let's collapse all of these actually. There's some different ways you can select it so that you know that you're getting what you need. You can actually select all the artboards just by clicking the actual artboard name. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm just going to click down to the end, and now it did select all of the actual artboards, and that was a whole lot easier than trying to do this finicky selection on the screen. Okay, so now my artboards are selected. I'm going to go up here and do File, Export, and then you can either export to PDF or to artboards to files. PDF is kind of nice if you just want to share some pictures with people, like maybe if you've got like a process where you just need to like print a bunch of stuff into one document and even maybe include the file names. That could be really handy. But in our case, that's not what we want. We want to be able to create assets that we can use in other documents later. So I'm going to click where it says Artboards to Files. All right, and let's go back here again. And I'm going to browse, and you'll notice you see where it says point photo investigation. That's the current Photoshop document that I'm working on. And inside of this are all of those original images. Well, what I need to do is I need to make a folder where I can output the new stuff. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it New Assets. All right, and inside of that folder, I think I'd kind of like to group them. So maybe everything that's point in one folder, plane in another folder, and so on. So for right now, I'm just going to create a new folder that's called point. I'm not going to make you watch me create all the other folders. Okay, so I'm going to make that And you can double check here, so I can go new assets and point. Yep, that's where I want them, and I'll click on open. All right, now that changed the path. And again, if you want to change what the prefix is, you can. It's up to you. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Now, see here, now that we have multiple artboards, it gives me the option of exporting all the selected artboards or not. And so the other thing too, it might default on your screen to include overlapping areas. I don't want to include the overlapping areas because that's going to include the entire picture. I want to just do the artboard content. And here's the reason, okay, that it gives you those options. You might look at that and go, why would I ever want to include the overlapping areas, basically the stuff that goes outside of the artboard? Well, because you'll see here, it gives you the choice of making them into a PSD file. And so if you wanted to create a single Photoshop document out of one artboard, maybe you just want to give one artboard's worth of stuff to somebody but not the entire document, then what you could do is you could export it out as a PSD, and then as long as you tell it to include the overlapping areas, then they would still be able to move things around and it wouldn't get cropped out. But that's not what we actually want. We actually want it to be a flat file, so I'm going to choose JPEG, also because JPEGs support high resolution. And I want to click on Artboard Content Only, and I want to keep the Export Selected Artboards chosen, and then include background and export. That's your decision. I don't have any other backgrounds chosen here, but if you wanted to get rid of a background so that you had transparency, that's something you could click or unclick. And the quality, I had to make sure that it was turned all the way up because I want the highest quality. And I don't want to include the artboard name. See, that's where it would actually put it inside the picture. I don't want that. There might be a case in the future where you might want that so that you could show a client or something a bunch of pictures, and then the asset file names would be on there for easy reference so that they would know, yes, I like this file, and then they could just send an email to you saying the name of the file instead of actually showing you a picture of it, right? So that's another good workflow thing. All right, so anyway, I'm going to just include the ICC profile. That is the color profile. Can't hurt to include that. It's good, and then that way it's more likely that your color is going to be good. And then I'll click on Run. Okay, and then you're going to watch your screen flip out for just a second. Okay, and then what eventually is going to happen is it should tell you it's successful. Hopefully that's what it says. Click OK. And then if you want to double check and make sure that it was what you expected it to be, okay. So it's opened up here, and what I can do is go into new assets, go into point, and look, all these pictures got automatically created, and it even put the number of the artboard at the end. If I didn't want these two words to run together, I could have also put an underscore or a dash or something inside whenever it gave me the option of naming this, right? So point photo investigation, and I could have put a dash at the end of it, and then it would have not run the two words together, right? That actually could be really helpful depending on what you're doing with the pictures. So that's really cool, and you can see that they're all perfect little squares, and if I wanted to take a really quick peek at them, I can make a little adjustment here. I'm on a Mac, so I can do this. On Windows, you probably can do a different version of this, but I want to be able to look at all of them kind of at once. So I'll go over here to new assets, click on point, and then if I do this, it'll kind of show me a little preview of the picture, which is awesome. And if you wanted to make sort of absolutely sure, and then I can blow it up a little bit bigger if it's easier, right? If I wanted to make absolutely sure that, you know, they look the way I expected them to, and more importantly, that they kept the resolution that I wanted, I want to click, or I can just drag this over to Photoshop and open it, and then I can go up to image size. And what you're looking for is, all right, the resolution's 300 because that's originally, remember what we set our PSD document to be, and I told you that no matter what the resolution is of the individual images, when you drag those individual images into a new document, they will convert their resolution over to be the equivalent of what their size and stuff would be in a new document with the new resolution. So they are 300, and then if I wanted to just double check that in inches, that yes, they are 3 by 3. So it's exactly what I asked them to be. And the reason that that worked really well is because I saved them in a way that is amenable to print. So I can close that file. All right, so that's great. And you know, that's really terrific. They look good for print. And if you wanted to kind of just double check, you know, you could come back and for like where it says point, you could call this like point print or something like that. And if you needed a separate set of assets for web or for some kind of screen display, then I can show you really quickly how to make that too. Now, for what we're doing in the class, you know, you're not going to need to do that. You're not going to need to create something that is also for the web. Like we're not doing that just yet, at least not with these images. And so this is really just so that you'll know how to do this in case you need to ever generate these images for maybe another class, or maybe you've got a workflow where you're doing more than just print for a client, you know, or maybe you're in a work group and maybe you're doing print stuff, but you also have to do the production work where you generate the web assets or something like that. So I'm going to show you that as well. So I'm actually going to create a new folder. And yeah, let's do it here. I'll create a new folder and I'll call it point-web so that we'll know that these are going to be smaller. They're going to be, or at least something for the web, okay? All right, so what I can do now is I'll go up to File and I will go to, and I don't need to worry about selecting all the artboards this time. I'll go to File, Export, and then I'll go Export As. And it should pop up this window. And you see it shows me all my artboards over here on the left side. And up here on the left it says ×1. That means that it's going to do it at the native size. And they're actually quite big. You can see that they're 900 pixels. I mean, they're not huge, but they're large. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave it like that. I'm not going to go into all the stuff about the web, right? But I just want to show you this as a way of thinking about it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select all of these so that they're all selected. And they happen to all be the same size and stuff, which is good. And then right over here where it says JPEG, you can choose if you want it to be a PNG, JPEG, GIF, or an SVG or whatever. So for us, let's just say that because these are photographic images and you want to try to get as much compression for the web or other kind of network delivery as possible, JPEG's going to be the better solution for that. A PNG does not have compression format. It's not something that it even supports. So for the quality, you know, depending on what you're going to be sending it to, you know, whether it's the web or, you know, if a mobile application or whatever, 65 is probably okay. I would probably, you know, err on the caution of quality a little bit more. And I just adjusted this. And you'll notice that on the left, it refreshed all of the file sizes because the file sizes have now been updated because I increased the quality by, I think it was like over 10%. So now they're much bigger. If I take that back down, I can also type this as a number. It was at 65, and if I just click somewhere off of that, you see that it updates everything. And the file size did go down. But I think maybe somewhere in the 70 range is probably safe. And what that does is that it's going to lower the quality just a little bit in favor of compression for faster delivery. So image size is, I'll leave it at 900 by 900, so that's 100% of its natural dimension. And one of the things that you might be wondering is like, okay, well, are these going to also be 300 ppi for the resolution? No, they're not, because this is assumed that you're saving it for the web, and because we're doing it at 1x or 1 times the size, it's going to export these images out. Specifically, this is one of the reasons this is such a wonderful tool. It knows to export them out at 72 ppi because that is the native resolution for screen media. All right, not for print media, but for things that are going to be displayed through a screen. So it's going to automatically adjust the resolution for us. And then down here where it says convert to RGB, finally Photoshop started checking that by default. That's good. We'll leave it there. That is a normal color space for the web. And you don't, in this case, you don't want to embed the color profile if you're using convert to sRGB. Usually that's a good idea. Okay, so I'm going to click on export all, and it's going to ask me where I want to put them. I'm going to go find that new folder and I'll put them in point web. I'll hit export, and now what I can do is go and take a peek, and here's point web, and you can see the pictures right there. Oh, and one of them, it looks like I might have blown some of these up just a little bit too much. They're just a little bit blurry on a couple of them. But anyway, let me just double check. Let's open that in Photoshop. And actually, it's not too bad because if I look at this down here and I go to 100%, I think that my browser, my Mac Quick Look application, was actually making the pictures bigger than they natively were when it was doing that quick preview. So if you remember, if you open it in Photoshop and you go down here to click on 100%, you'll know that that's the actual 100% size that the image is going to be. And I'm okay with this. That's fine. And then I could also double check, maybe look at another one if I wanted to just double check it really quick. And that looks just fine to me. Okay, so that's how you can export stuff in batches. And now what you've got, if you come back here, okay, now what you've got is you've got two folders, and if you did both of these things, you've got one that's good for web and one that's good for print. And if you wanted, you could even put point-print on here. And then you'll know that you've got something that's going to work really well when you go to drop them into a template in either InDesign or Illustrator or something like that, so that you can arrange them all together. And what's cool is that then in Illustrator and InDesign, you don't have to worry about clipping masks and all of that stuff to block out parts of the picture. It was just super easy to do that in Photoshop, and at the same time in Photoshop, I could also add any kind of color correction filters and stuff like that, and just export it out. So anyway, that's the end of this demo, and let me know if you have any questions.